Ever feel like your story's gotten so off track, you have no idea how to adjust it to make it better? Maybe your plot drags in the middle, your hero goes on quests that feel like filler, or your ending just sort of fizzles out. In these instances, it can feel very difficult to pinpoint exactly what is going wrong and how to fix it. Well, that's where authors can lean on story structures to get back on track. In this video, I'll walk you through how to use the Save the Cat method, one of the most popular story models in publishing. We'll walk through Save the Cat's character creation process and its 15 story beats, and use them to transform your novel into something truly unforgettable. So by the end of this video, you'll know how to use Save the Cat's story structure to plan or revise your novel to make it a more compelling story. To help you out with going through the material we're about to cover, I've put together a free PDF worksheet that you can use to map out your novel in progress and quickly see where it needs to change. The link is in the description. So what is Save the Cat? The original Save the Cat was a script writing story guide written by Blake Snyder, and it has been hugely influential in the movie industry over the past 30 years. Once you're familiar with Save the Cat, when you watch major Hollywood movies, you cannot unsee Save the Cat's influence. The Matrix, Ratatouille, The Avengers, Inside Out, countless films adhere very closely to Save the Cat's guidelines. And this is not a coincidence. It's a mark of how much movie producers are influenced by Save the Cat. Now this video is about your novel's story structure, so you may be asking why we're going off a structure designed for movies. Two reasons. Number one, story is universal. And number two, Save the Cat has hugely influenced the publishing industry as well. Now, novelists lean on the novel adaptation of this book, called Save the Cat Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. So that's the version I'm referring to whenever I say Save the Cat. But the substance of both versions is largely the same. At the core, Save the Cat presents two main things: a framework of 15 different story beats, basically narrative milestones to mark your story's progress, and a breakdown of 10 different story genres, which in Save the Cat are the different types of stories, the different categories. And then finally, Save the Cat has some supplemental sections. At the beginning, there's a section on how to craft your main character. And then at the end of the book, there are sections on how to pitch your story, as well as some FAQs. Now that is a lot of info to convey in a single video. So in the interest of not overwhelming you, I'm going to keep this video to the two most important sections of Save the Cat: crafting your main character and the 15 story beats. If you're interested in a video on the 10 genres, let me know in the comments. And then finally, before we get going, I'm sure you're curious about one thing. What's up with the name Save the Cat? Well, the name Save the Cat refers to a crucial moment in a screenplay, the moment where the audience meets the protagonist for the first time. Snyder felt it was crucial that the protagonist had some moment that would make them likable in the viewer's eye. Something that would make the viewer want to root for the protagonist for the rest of the movie. Something like saving a cat from a tree. And this gave us the title, Save the Cat. So let's get right into section 1, Save the Cat's guidelines on how to craft your main character. Now your main character is the most important part of your story. And the way Brody frames it is we don't just want a great plot, we need a character worthy of the plot. And specifically, a character the reader will actually care about. Save the Cat has a simple way to formulate a story-worthy character. Your character just needs 3 things: a problem or a flaw that needs fixing, a want or a goal the hero is pursuing, and a need or a life lesson that the character needs to learn. The reason these details are key to making your hero likable is these are human qualities. It makes the hero relatable and gives us a journey of change to enjoy following them on. We wouldn't find Bilbo Baggins as interesting if he didn't start out obsessed with respectability, wanting to stay comfortable in his little hobbit hole, yet needing adventure in his life. But because Tolkien portrays Bilbo this way, it sets us up to recognize from the beginning, oh man, Bilbo is in for it. I've got to see what kind of adventure shakes him out of these habits. So let's dig into these 3 character qualities. First off, the problem or the flaw. Some key points for the character flaw is it should boil over and cause issues in every aspect of the hero's life. A nice shorthand to target everything in a hero's life is work, home, and play. For example, Elizabeth Bennet from Pride and Prejudice has 2 clear-cut flaws. She's proud and she's prejudiced. This flaw spills over into all areas of her life. It causes her to be blind to her sister's reckless way of living. It causes her social missteps like insulting Mr. Darcy at the ball. And it causes her to turn down a suitable marriage prospect. Next, we have the character want. Your character should be aware they have problems, and so their want is the superficial thing they think will fix the problem. They should be motivated to get this thing and actively trying to get it. Don't let your character's flaw be passivity. This is a very common problem in novels. Your character needs to be trying things and failing if we're going to root for them. Also, make sure these wants are tangible. It should be obvious to the reader if they have attained this token happiness or not. That's an important signal to the reader of where we are as we're following the main character's journey. It makes your character's journey much easier to follow. But in short, what's most important about the character want is this is what should move the plot forward. Not events happening to the hero, but the hero trying to change their problematic life by getting this thing they want. Examples of a character want is Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment. He kills an immoral person, and he wants to believe his crime was justified. But this does not come easily because an innocent person walked in and saw the crime, so he had to kill her too. And he can't justify killing an innocent person. And then the third component of a story-worthy character is the character need. The need is the thing that will really fix the hero's psychological problem. Save the Cat calls this psychological problem the shard of glass. When the hero finally gets their need, the big character transformation occurs. And this is like the cherry on top of the story. A good term for this need is the life lesson, and it should always be something universal. Examples of character needs are Raskolnikov's need in Crime and Punishment to accept his guilt and seek redemption. And another example is Elizabeth Bennet's need in Pride and Prejudice to overcome her pride and prejudice so she can truly understand others. So these are the building blocks of a story-worthy hero. They need a flaw, a want, and a need. These are crucial to get clear on. The interplay of these will be happening throughout your story. So some questions for you. What is your hero's flaw, want, and need? Write them out on a piece of paper, or you can use my PDF worksheet linked down in the description. All right, next we have the story beats, the real meat and potatoes of Save the Cat. Here's how the story beats work. First, Save the Cat slices your book's outline into 3 acts. Maybe you've heard of the 3-act structure before. And from there, it further divides your book into 15 separate chunks, which they call story beats. A beat is a film term that in Save the Cat means a story milestone, a specific story moment that is an essential step in your overall narrative arc. Save the Cat calls this your beat sheet. This kind of roadmap is what all story structures provide. They're tools to help you write better stories faster because you know where you're going, so you hopefully don't veer off course too much and write a bunch of text that has no place in the final manuscript. Now, story beats vary in length. Some of these beats are a single scene, and in this context, scene can mean either a section of a chapter or a full chapter. Other beats, by contrast, are many chapters long. But what's the same about all of these beats is they are indispensable moments that contribute to the story's total effect. To give another metaphor, if the story was a cake, These are the non-negotiable ingredients. Save the Cat maps these story beats at different percentage points of the way through your manuscript. So for example, no matter how long your book is, beat number 8, called Fun and Games, will always start around the 20% mark in your manuscript. If it's a 40,000 word middle grade novel, that would be page 32. If it's a 120,000 page epic fantasy, it would still be at the 20% mark, but that would be page 96. So now that we've talked about story beats in general, let's now go through all 15 Save the Cat story beats in detail, starting with story beats in Act 1. In stories, Act 1 usually represents the normal world, the status quo world, or what Jessica Brody calls the thesis world. There's a sense of stuckness and stagnancy about this world. It's the hero's world, and it's where we first meet the hero and learn about all the things going wrong, or at least about to go wrong. Here we experience some of the hero's problems, and eventually the hero is going to be forced to make a decision to leave this status quo world behind and try to achieve their want, the thing they think will fix their problems. And here we encounter the first beat of the story. And again, beats are the essential story milestones. Beat number 1 is the opening image, and it's somewhere between a scene to a chapter in length. The opening image sets the stage and lets the reader know what to expect in the book. So here's where you're promising what kind of tone the novel's going to have, what your writing style is going to be. But most importantly, the opening image is a snapshot of the hero before their adventure begins. For example, when we first meet Harry Potter in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, he's living in a small cupboard under the stairs full of spiders. He's an orphan, he's wearing his crappy cousin's hand-me-down clothes, and he believes himself to be a worthless, unremarkable person. In the opening image, it's crucial to show that the hero has problems. This scene should be an event where the character's flaws and messed up life are on full display. Now, you don't need to show everything that's wrong with the hero, but the flaws on display here should be a representative snapshot of exactly what needs to change and exactly what will have changed by the last beat in the story, the final snapshot. In general, the bigger the difference between the hero's life at the end compared to the beginning, the better the story. Because stories are fundamentally about character transformation. Beat number 2 is theme stated. It appears somewhere between the 5 to 10% point, and it's one scene in length, sometimes one sentence in length. As you'd expect in this beat, somebody states the theme of the story. The theme is the life lesson, the thing the hero needs to learn in order to really change. You don't want to spend too much time emphasizing the theme in this beat. The hero is going to be spending the whole book flailing around before they finally figure it out. Instead, the effect you want to produce here is that the hero hears the answer to all their problems, but they don't get it. They ignore, resist, or shut down the advice. It doesn't reach them. And it's going to take a lot of trouble before the advice finally does reach them. This makes the story human in an important way. People don't easily change. They change when they have to. What's ultimately going to change the hero is when the world no longer allows them to live life the way they have. Change happens when we're shaken out and forced to find a new way to be. Not because somebody gave the answer and we readily accepted it and changed our whole life. But the power of some character stating the theme at the beginning is it kind of plants the seed subconsciously in the reader's mind of what the whole transformative journey of the story is going to be about. On to beat number 3, we have the setup. The setup is a multi-scene beat where you detail the hero's problems in their status quo world. It's an expansion of your opening image where you just shared a little snapshot. Traditionally, you do this by showing the hero in their 3 main life environments: work, home, and play. The setup is basically the whole first 10% of your novel. And I'll be clear here that some of the smaller beats fall inside a larger beat. For example, beat 2, theme stated, happens inside beat 3, the setup. Hope that's clear. Now, in the setup, the reason the hero's problems are important is because you're making it clear why the hero needs their world to be shaken up, why they need to transform. But in addition to showing the hero's problems, the setup does other things too. It introduces the A-story characters, which means the characters from the hero's status quo world. These characters are often the context behind the hero's problems, and maybe the hero blames these people for their life being the way it is. Or maybe the hero thinks, if I just had a relationship with this A-story character, or if I just had the opportunities this A-story character had, my life would be fixed. The A-story characters represent the surface level story that's about to come. Now, the main effect of the setup is the reader should feel like things can't keep going this way for the hero. Something needs to happen or these problems are going to get out of control. Brody calls this the stasis equals death moment. For example, in The Hunger Games, Katniss's family depends on her to bring in enough food to survive. But the rations aren't enough. If she doesn't hunt for food in the woods, her family is going to starve. And this brings up one more important bit of context for the setup. Even this early, your hero should be pursuing some kind of goal. Throughout the book, the hero should always want something. Don't leave them aimless or passive for too long, or again, the reader won't have anything to root for. The hero's wants can change many times over the course of a book, but if the hero doesn't want anything, the story will stagnate, and therefore the story will be boring. Beat number 4 is the catalyst, and here's where things finally get crazy. We called Act 1 the status quo world. Well, the catalyst is the status quo disruptor. For example, in Harry Potter, he starts receiving strange letters in the mail addressed to him, but his uncle does everything in his power to keep Harry from reading one, even rowing him off to a deserted island in the middle of a rainstorm. But still, Hagrid locates Harry, bursts through the door of their little shack, and delivers the news the Dursleys didn't want Harry to hear. "You're a wizard, Harry." Like I suggested earlier, no character wants to leave their comfortable status quo life and venture into discomfort. Nobody wants to change unless they absolutely have to. Let this idea guide the catalyst you develop. Something should happen to your hero here that is so big they can no longer stay in their old life anymore. They are forced to change because of this event. The catalyst is one scene that forces the hero's hand, and afterwards the hero must do something different. This beat happens at the 10% mark or earlier, and generally it's some kind of bad or inconvenient news, because realistically, bad news is generally what forces us to change our lives. And now we've made it to the final beat in Act 1. Beat number 5, the debate. The debate is the hero's reaction to the catalyst. This big event just happened, so now the debate is the section where the hero processes things. The debate is a multi-scene beat, so the reader has time to enjoy the heroes struggling over this all-important decision and all it'll mean for their life. This is the beat where the hero asks, "What do I do now?" It's a multi-scene beat that takes the reader from the 10% to the 20% mark in the novel, which is the end of Act 1. Sometimes authors will take the hero back to the work, home, and play settings during this beat, so you can see the hero processing the implications for every specific area of their life. In some instances, there isn't exactly anything to debate. For example, in The Martian, Mark Watney is left for dead on the planet Mars. He wakes up alone on the planet and just gets to surviving. The debate at its heart is the reaction to the catalyst. So some characters don't have anything to debate, and for them, this beat is often about preparation for what's to come. Congratulations! We made it all the way through Act 1. Here are some questions you can ask about your own novel's Act 1 to make it as good as possible. What are my hero's problems that I'm emphasizing in the opening image and the setup? What active things is my hero pursuing in Act 1? What do they want? What's getting in the way of that? And is my catalyst so big My hero has no choice but to leave their status quo existence. Let's have fun in the comments. Share your story's gigantic catalyst for others to see. And remember to make them so big there's no going back. So now we're into Act 2. Act 1 was called the thesis world. Now Act 2 is the antithesis world. It's the upside down world. You want to make sure the Act 2 world is as different as possible from the world of Act 1. And here's the most important way you're making it different. The Act 2 world should be tailor-made to stretch your hero in exactly the ways they need to be stretched. Novels are about transforming your characters, and that's the function of this new world the hero is getting into. It's designed to challenge every wrong-headed view they have that's getting in the way of them living a transformed life. Also, Act 2 is long. It's 60% of your book. But it's also chock full of fun and wildness. And what goes on in Act 2 is basically the selling point of your book. We've got 7 beats in this act, so let's get to it. We start with beat number 6, Break into 2. Break into 2 is a single scene that signals the hero's entry into their new upside-down world. For example, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they go to Narnia. In Ready Player One, Wade Watts fully commits to a public pursuit of solving the Oasis quest and outplaying IOI. Now, I keep saying Act 2 is a world, but the hero doesn't need to physically go anywhere different. They just need to be trying something they never would have done if it weren't for the catalyst in Act 1. They may be trying on a new personality, hang out with a friend group they never would have rolled with before, or maybe they got a new job. What matters is the transition into the hero's new world should be obvious to the reader. And very importantly, your hero needs to be proactive here. They need to choose this new way of being. That's because this shows they're taking responsibility for changing their flaws and trying something new. It doesn't need to be the right decision. In fact, it shouldn't be. Jessica Brody calls Act 2 fixing things the wrong way. But you want this moment to be theirs. They're stepping out into a wider world with all kinds of new risks and adventures. Beat number 7 is called B Story. This beat is all about the introduction of the B story character. So let me tell you what that is. As a reminder, the B story means the theme of the book, the life lesson, rather than the A story, which is the external events and issues that are all happening. So the B story character is the side character whose main story role is to help the hero learn the valuable life lesson they need in order to finally transform. And here, in this beat, is where they're often introduced. This beat happens around the 22% mark, usually right after beat 6, Break into 2. Now, I called the B story character the helper character, and help can come in all kinds of ways. This character could be a mentor, a love interest, a friend, or even the antagonist. All that matters is they are the strongest personal influence in getting the hero to see the truth about their problems. An example of a B story character is Peeta Mellark in The Hunger Games. He's the person who ultimately inspires Katniss to look beyond her own survival and look towards screwing the Capitol. There are 3 ways a B story character can help a hero recognize the theme. They can embody the theme, they can bring out the right qualities in the hero, or they can be like a cautionary tale, like they have the same problems as the hero, but worse. The B story character should be a product of the new world the hero finds themselves in Act 2. So you want to make it so the hero just wouldn't have met the B story character if the hero hadn't stepped into this new world. This is because otherwise it makes the hero's decision to step into a new world pointless, because they could have just stayed where they were and still learned this lesson from an A story character in the status quo world. Beat number 8 is fun and games, and this is a big boy. This section of your book goes from the 20% mark to the 50% mark. So fun and games describes the first half of Act 2. This is an important beat because what happens here is usually the selling point of the book. For example, in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, here's where they tour the chocolate factory. So Jessica Brody calls this beat the promise of the premise. The fun and games beat is certainly not all fun and games for the hero, but it's a lot of fun for the reader. Now you have two options for how the hero fares when they first enter the upside down world of Act 2. They can be succeeding or failing. And this is an important choice for you to make because it'll determine the course of Act 2. So think about what would be most natural for your hero and your story, and try to emphasize an upward or a downward path through these chapters. Now, it's not all upward or all downward. You should vary up the failures and successes, what Brody calls the bouncing ball narrative. But there should be a clear upward or downward path. An example of an upward path is The Martian. Watney's growing potatoes. He's got food. And a generally downward path is Katniss in The Hunger Games. She's getting burned, dehydrated, stung. She's not starting off so well in the Act 2 world. All right, we're over halfway through the beats, and that brings us to beat number 9, the midpoint. As you'd expect, this beat falls around the 50% point, and it's a very significant one. One of the most common errors authors make is their stories kind of slacken in the middle and drag along. The middle feels like filler. A great midpoint will make this error impossible. The midpoint is an event, a single scene, where the stakes raise in a major way. Brody calls this the shit gets real beat. In the fun and games beat, you are guiding your hero in a general path of success or failure in this new world they've entered. The midpoint is the culmination of that. If things were going pretty well, the midpoint event marks a false victory. And if the hero's been struggling, the midpoint is a false defeat. Let's stick with our examples from beat 8. In The Martian, Watney's now growing enough food that he should be able to survive till he's rescued. False victory. In The Hunger Games, Peeta has joined forces with the career Hunger Games competitors. False defeat. The effect of a false victory or defeat is to signal to the hero that they're fixated on their wants and they still don't understand the thing they really need. From the false victory standpoint, maybe they get what they wanted since the beginning of the story. They get the girl, they get the job, but their underlying problems remain. Or from the false defeat perspective, the hero is wallowing and thinking their life is over. But the reader can see this is a good thing because the hero's been chasing the wrong thing. The midpoint is a wake-up moment. The midpoint makes it even more impossible for the hero to go back to their old way of living. The bridge is burned, and now, because of the midpoint, it's even more urgent that the hero figures out the life lesson before it's too late. There are many ways to raise the stakes in a midpoint, but here are the ways Brody details. A love story can ramp up, a time clock can appear, there can be a major plot twist, or there can be a big party or a public reveal. And the final thing that Brody says is important about the midpoint is the A story and the B story intersect. Remember, the A story is the events, your hero chasing the things they want, and the B story is the life lesson, what the hero needs. So oftentimes your B story character is really important in this midpoint beat because they're the character designed to help the hero realize the lesson. Beat number 10 is bad guys close in. This is another large beat. It goes from the 50% mark to the 75% mark in your novel. Bad guys close in is sort of a misleading name. Whether you have bad guys or not, whether in this section your hero's progressing or failing, the essence of this beat is the hero's problems are coming home to roost. This beat moves the opposite direction of your fun and games beat. So if fun and games was a trajectory of victory, culminating in a false victory during the midpoint, then bad guys close in will be where everything starts falling apart for the hero. But if fun and games was a trajectory of failure, culminating in a false defeat, then during bad guys close in, things will actually start looking really good for your hero. But again, remember, since the hero hasn't learned the life lesson yet, these are superficial false victories. For example, in Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Wickham, the officer who Elizabeth's younger sister Lydia is enthralled with, he leaves for another town. Lydia begs her dad to let her leave to visit Wickham with a friend, And her dad says yes. There's the sense that real trouble is brewing, since Mr. Darcy has already written explaining that Mr. Wickham is not a great dude. Don't forget that in Bad Guys Close In, the stakes should be rising. Time's running out for your hero to realize their life lesson. If the events in this beat are less intense than the events that happen during fun and games, the story's going to fall a little flat. Remember that at the midpoint, shit got real. So the consequences of that event should make the false victories or defeats in this beat bigger. The midpoint has upped the ante, and now the hero's flaws are closing in, and these flaws are eventually gonna cause a disaster. Number 11 is the all is lost beat. This is the ultimate low point of the book. It hits at the 75% mark. It's a single scene, and it's where all the hero's flaws finally catch up to them. The chicks have finally come home to roost. Now the all is lost beat needs to be huge. All really needs to be lost. The hero must be worse off than they were at the start of the book, and this fall from grace needs to at least partly be the hero's fault, a result of the flaw they've covered up but haven't addressed. In The Martian, Watney's habitat blows up, killing all his potatoes. In Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth's sister Lydia elopes with Mr. Wickham, bringing shame on all the family. I'll repeat, this event has to be really bad. All should be lost. Most amateur authors don't make this scene bad enough. This is the part in a story where mentors die, breakups happen, jobs are lost, the revolution is squashed. And the reason it needs to be this bad is because this dreadful moment will finally be the catalyst that will soon force the hero to learn the lesson they needed to learn all along. After this, they have no choice but to change. They're out of options. Beat 12 is the dark night of the soul. The previous beat, All is Lost, was another catalyst, an event that forces the hero to change. And after actions, we always have reactions. So this is another reaction beat, just like beat 5, the debate. The dark night of the soul is where the hero wallows and ponders, or rages, or goes into denial. All the things a real person would do if a terrible thing happened to them and it was sort of their fault. How your hero reacts will depend on their personality, but however they react, it comes to the same thing. They're debating where things went wrong and how they need to change or see things differently to keep going. You have several scenes to draw this processing out, from the 75% point to the 80% point of your book. And usually the big epiphany happens here, the hero's ultimate conclusion. For example, in The Hunger Games, Katniss's ally Rue has been killed, and Katniss mourns, sings to her, and covers her in flowers. And here is where she decides she doesn't just want to survive, she wants to make the Capitol pay for what they've done. In The Dark Knight, the hero realizes that the answer is to do something totally different, to be totally different, to transform. Sometimes in The Dark Night of the Soul, the hero temporarily goes back to their old life, what Brody calls a return to the familiar, the world of Act 1. Back to their old job, their old girlfriend, or their old habits. But this previously comfortable situation no longer feels like home, and it no longer feels safe. Well done! We've reached the end of Act 2, and we are almost all the way through the story now. If you're benefiting from this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really makes a big difference in this information getting out to more people. And now, here are some questions you can ask about your Act 2 to make it as powerful as possible. In what ways is your Act 2 world truly the opposite of the Act 1 world, designed to challenge the hero in all the ways the Act 1 world never could? How does your midpoint event raise the stakes in your story? And what happens to your hero that truly makes them feel all is lost? All right, we've made it to Act 3. Things are finally about to come together. Act 3 has a snazzy title, just like the others. Remember, Act 1 was called the thesis, the status quo world. Act 2 was the antithesis, the upside-down world. And Act 3 is called the synthesis, where the two worlds come together. What that means is your hero is about to face their huge pile of problems with their newfound wisdom. They're going to finally do things the right way. Kicking off Act 3 is Beat 13, Break into 3, as in break into the Act 3 world, the synthesis world. This is one scene, it happens at the 80% mark, and this beat is literally a breakthrough. The hero has their big realization. They finally understand the theme that was stated way back in Beat 2, the true solution to all their problems. In Act 2, they were fixing things the wrong way. Now, with their newfound realization, they're ready to fix things the right way. And almost always, the realization includes this. I thought others needed to change, or my circumstances needed to change, but really I needed to change. For example, in Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth realizes she'd been totally wrong about Mr. Darcy. He secretly resolved the scandal of Lydia and Wickham's elopement using his own money, even though Elizabeth had rejected him. Now Elizabeth sees her own prejudices in perfect clarity. And now, finally, we've reached the final finale. Beat 14, the finale. This is another long one. It goes from the 80% mark to the 99% mark. The finale is the final test. It proves that the hero has learned their personal lesson. So now they're taking action to fix things. Another name for the finale is storming the castle, in keeping with the hero fairy tale vibe. For example, in Harry Potter, Harry, Ron, and Hermione go through the trapdoor and solve the puzzles to get to the Sorcerer's Stone. In the finale, it's important that you don't make things too easy for the hero or wrap things up too quickly. This is a test of character, so the hero should be challenged and have an opportunity to demonstrate to the world and to the reader that they've changed. Since the finale is a long beat, Save the Cat has an optional 5-point roadmap you can follow that simplifies the process of making a good finale. They go like this. Point number 1 is gathering the team. The hero may have made a mess of their previous relationships during All Is Lost, so sometimes this section is about making amends, apologizing to friends for being so stupid earlier. But if the relationships are intact, or if there's no literal team to gather, oftentimes instead the hero is gathering the tools here, formulating the plan, getting ready for their crazy mission. Point 2 is executing the plan. Oftentimes here, the hero and their team are astonishingly successful in their harebrained scheme. It seemed impossible at first, but here you give the reader the sense that maybe this will actually be easy. Sometimes quirky side characters get a chance to shine here. This is also a spot where a B-story sacrifice often happens. Somebody dies off in order for the plan to succeed, or the side characters get shuffled off, so the hero will be forced to handle the ultimate challenge alone. The purpose of this is so the hero can demonstrate to the reader that they've really changed. For example, in Harry Potter, Ron shows off his mad chess skills, but he needs to sacrifice himself for the group to go further. Point 3 is the high tower surprise. Here's where the plan goes awry with a final plot twist. The initial plan is not going to work, and the hero's at a loss of what to do about it. This is the final catalyst in the story, and will bring about one final reaction from the hero. For example, in The Hunger Games, the Capitol suddenly revokes the rule that 2 tributes from the same district can both win. So now suddenly Katniss and Peeta's plan to win together is seemingly squashed. Point 4 in the finale is the dig deep down. The plan didn't work because of this unforeseen event, so now the hero doesn't have a plan. They're alone, they have no hope. But here they discover they do still have something, the theme of the story that they realized during their breakthrough. This gives the hero a new idea, a new way of handling the final obstacle, and it's something they never would have been able to do at the start of the story. Now they've changed, so they are equal to this crazy obstacle in front of them. And finally, point 5 is the execution of the new plan. Here's where the hero puts the new plan into effect, and they succeed. All the pain and trouble they've been through was worth it because it gave them what they needed to overcome this huge threat. This event serves to make the theme of your story super memorable. It's bold, it's buck wild, it will resonate with the reader and stick with them for a long time. For example, in The Hunger Games, spoiler alert, Katniss and Peeta both eat poisoned berries as a final FU to the Capitol. But since the whole thing is televised, the Capitol backs down and reinstates the rule that Katniss and Peeta can both win the contest. And the last beat number 15, is one single scene. It's the final image of the story. This scene is designed to be a contrast to the first beat of the story, the opening image. In the final image, you want the hero to be as different as night and day compared to the opening image. For example, in The Hobbit, Bilbo returns back to the Shire, but he's not timid or averse to adventure anymore. Now he's brave, he's confident in his cleverness, he's rich, and he's not like the other hobbits anymore. The more different the hero is at the end, the more you demonstrate there was a point to the story. Because the point of the story is hero transformation. It's falling in love with a character and watching him grow. And that is Act 3. Here are some questions for you to consider to make your Act 3 as amazing as possible. What is my hero's specific breakthrough, the cure for the shard of glass that's been stuck in their heart? What is the twist that happens that makes the hero's plan go awry in the finale, forcing them to dig deep and lean on the lesson they've learned? How have I made my final image and my opening image as different as possible? All right, guys, we've done it. We've looked at all 15 beats of Save the Cat and drunk from a fire hose of story wisdom. Again, don't feel like you have to retain all this information, and don't feel bad if it isn't clear to you yet. There is a lifetime of story study embedded in these beats. As a next step, when you're ready to work on your story, download the worksheet in the description, listen back to this video part by part, and journal down thoughts about your own story and progress from the perspective of each story beat. Now, Save the Cat is not the final word on storytelling, despite Brody advertising her book as the last book on storytelling you'll ever need. But if you do find that your story is lacking impact, these beats are a fantastic way to tilt your story dynamics to be more emotionally engaging to the reader. Thank you for spending this time with me, going through Save the Cat and studying story. I genuinely think this stuff is fascinating, and I'm grateful that we could share these fun insights together. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please subscribe for more videos like this. And also, let me know if you'd be interested in me writing a course on this subject matter. There's only so much I can go into in a YouTube video, but if you'd benefit from an even more detailed walkthrough you can follow to easily diagnose your story and make it as great as possible, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck on making your story better with Save the Cat. Have a great day. Peace.